Okay, good afternoon, and last 20 minutes before lunch, so I hope I won't get people too hungry. So feel free to interrupt and ask questions. That just means I need to talk less, and I'm quite happy talking less. So, I think I'm going to start with a brief outline of the presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about Dialog, the company that I'm from, a little bit of background about our market. Then I'm going to talk about the problem, and I think it's been mentioned a lot in the previous presentations. A little bit about what we did, and then finally about the details on how we try to crack it. And finally what we think of doing in the future. So the background, Dialog Axiata, we are the dominant operator in the market in Sri Lanka at the moment. We are a quad play operator, about 9.5 million customers, and it's a predominantly prepaid market in Sri Lanka. So a lot of feature phones, Android smartphones are growing very rapidly, but there's still a lot of feature phones in the market. And the list is, the rest of the bullet points there are talking about some of the things that we've done, we've accomplished as a company. Couple of regional firsts. Roaming, the first to operate Asia in the Asia Pac region in '97. Commercial 3G in 2006, and more recently 4G roaming again in June 2013, and then very recently around an operator interop mobile wallet. So this is the world's first operating interop version of mobile wallet. And as Johannes mentioned at the start, in countries like Sri Lanka where credit card penetration is low, things like mobile wallet are very powerful, and these are things that have significant social impact. Okay, so that's, as I said, a quick run through about or a quick background about the market in Sri Lanka and my company, and I've deliberately picked all the sort of big innovation bullet points to try and give you a flavor of what we do in Dialog. Okay, so the problem statement, and this is one that was mentioned before, and in Johannes' slide, it was about the need for speed, how we need to be moving much faster in some areas. Operator life cycles are much slower than app development life cycles, and this is a big problem. So what this means is, it typically takes about 6 months to launch a new VAS service. Even if it's a very simple, SMS-based, ordering tickets for movie tickets or something very simple, takes this much time because it impacts so many things. And generally in Dialog, and we are very good at this. That's the point I was trying to make in the previous slide. We are a very innovative company. We only still manage to do 10 or 15 of these, which is really the problem. We should be doing a lot more. We should be doing different things. And that very blurred picture, that's not the projector gone wrong, but that's all I can show you guys of our internal network architecture, because it's one of those closely guarded secrets. It's all wrapped up. There's about 3 people in the company who know the details of how that works. It's immensely complex. And that's why it takes so long to launch a service. And on the left-hand side, that flowchart talks about the typical go-to-market process for a new service that comes to the company. So it usually means a face-to-face meeting. A vendor, service provider comes and talks to us. So look at this service. This is what you can do. This is the value proposition to the customer. Then you get multiple rounds of commercial negotiations with various stakeholders in the company. Then usually in parallel you go through commercial, legal discussions, negotiations, and then finally you get into the technical nitty-gritty of the details of how this works, and then you need to get into that very blurred diagram and start messing with boxes in that, which is usually a mess, and usually means talking to 2 or 3 teams, and these are 2 or 3 separate technical teams, and then a separate track around setting up VPN connectivity, access accounts to each of those subsystems. And this is the bit that takes your time, and this is usually what makes it an absolute pain to work with an operator. So I don't know if anyone in the room has developed a service with an operator. Has anyone done that? Okay, so you guys must understand the pain completely. It's building a service for an operator is probably one of the worst things you can do, and I say that being an operator.
I'm surprised you are able to do it in 6 months.
There you go. Yeah. So this is exactly the problem. And then once you finally got that developed, then you've got to go through various deployments, QA, staging, production, and then a very, very rigorous UAT and a PLA process before things goes to market. So this is the problem, and what we're trying to do is, I'm going to skip through this. This is the revolution. This is what we're trying to change, and to a large extent, actually you can't say large extent, to some extent, we've done this in Dialog, and we've managed to get to a point where we can get a service out in about a month. And instead of launching 10 services, we're doing thousands now. And this is based on actual data points. We've got a slide following that will go into detail. And the way we've done this is, again, focusing on, APIs being a very strong part of it, but it's not just the technology, but it's a change in mindset. It's about securing the components that are critical to the network. I think it was mentioned you don't want the bank playing around with your money, you don't want your telco messing around with your phone so your phone stops working. So it's about protecting those critical areas, but giving enough flexibility for developers to play within that environment. So critical things, we moved away from those, very arduous, long, multiple face-to-face meetings. We've got online self-service portals. We moved away from the very, long commercial negotiations to rate cards. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, but multiple size-fits-all versus negotiate for 1 month. So it is a different model, and this is the change in mindset that I was referring to. Again, very similar adoption of the contract legal framework an operator takes. And then finally, instead of talking to the 3 or 4 teams and trying to understand that very complex network architecture, you're now talking to one team that does approval, access to those network elements. So that team has been empowered to make decisions on behalf of the other technical teams, and that is what the API management layer brings. And finally, as I said, it's not the Wild West. It's somewhere there. There's still some rules, and these applications have to work within that defined framework. There are certain boundaries, and there are regulatory pricing regulations that an operator must adhere to. So all of these processes will go through app approval processes within the operator. Not the same, or not as stringent as others I was referring to, but again within that little play area. So you're giving developers freedom to operate within that environment. And finally, the picture does Lego. So we like Lego because Lego is cool, colorful, and I think it articulates this whole model of reusing these blocks multiple times. So another thing that I try to do here is, this diagram is different to the very blurred, complex network diagram, because what we're trying to do and say here is that you're not one of those 4 network experts who know the network and who only have the skills to build it. But now you've opened up this ecosystem to everybody. Anybody can build applications, and that's what we've done in Dialog. And in the next slide, I'm going to talk about the products. So Ideamart here, this is a local developer community, local engagement that we have in Sri Lanka, that we work with our local community. So some stats there. So it's been working in operation for about 18 months plus now, and growing rapidly, both in terms of revenue, in terms of usage, and the number of developers actively engaging with us. So a couple of key stats there: 2,500 community members. We've been involved. We've organized a couple of hackathons and actively engaged in multiple others. we engage with most of the major universities in Sri Lanka, and we've even started engaging with some of the schools. In terms of the APIs we have exposed, we've got SMS, location-based services, LBS, USSD, charging, which is direct operator billing, and also EasyCash, which is our mobile wallet, and NFC. So these applications are essentially built from those little building blocks. And what I think one thing we've done, which is unique, is that we've segmented the market and we've attacked it in that fashion. So we've built a set of template apps for non-expert developers, content providers, big companies looking for customer feedback to build these template-driven apps. So that's what we've implemented in Idea Apps for people who don't have expertise in developing. They can still use these. Now, this is an example of where the app approval process is much easier. The technical complexity is very much less because you're using a cookie cutter approach to just replicate, and the only thing you're governing here is the content. Idea Pro, so those are the REST APIs that can be used. And what we have in Ideamart is we've got both the business models that we discussed earlier, where you can charge a service provider or a software vendor per API transaction, or let the developer come and build something for free, but only pay a rev share when that service starts earning money. So we support both business models, and we are targeting the rev share model at the long term, and the per transaction charging, that includes direct operator billing charging at the enterprises and the big boys. So that's a very quick snapshot of Ideamart, and I have to say that technology is critical, but we worked very hard to get this kind of developer engagement. Those 2,800 apps that were developed were developed by the team going out and talking to people and getting people engaged. Because you go to a university program, people are already using Google Maps, they're using Google APIs. No one uses telco APIs. But in Sri Lanka, there's more mobile phones than credit cards by a huge margin. You can't even, and Dialog's got many more outlets than any of those OTT players. So in terms of reach, it is a very powerful offering, but it requires communication and getting understanding from the people who develop these apps. And we've run a lot of programs, 58 outreach programs in the last year and a half. So multiple universities, multiple schools, and even some enterprises. We've run multiple social media campaigns, getting people interested, starting to think about what you could do with telco APIs. And we work with other, special interest groups. We work with Google, for instance, and we work together with them to see how you can do mashups with multiple APIs. And as I said, because we engage a lot with long tail, we've started engaging with angel networks within Sri Lanka and India to look at funding some of these. Because very quickly, these guys are starting, as I said, by leveraging Dialog's infrastructure. Some of these people are making more money than they make from their day jobs working part-time. So the venture funding starts to help them accelerate their business to the next level. Okay, so that's a very quick run-through of Ideamart. Now, in terms of products, this is another one that we did very recently.
Before you go on to that, so the apps that are developed and delivered on Ideamart, do they only work for your Dialog customers, or what about the other mobile phone areas in Sri Lanka and roaming?
No, at the moment it's only Sri Lanka. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, one thing that would greatly accelerate is getting the other operators also engaged. But working with other operators is almost as hard as working with operators, if you know what I mean. So. Okay, so Mobile Connect, this is actually a GSMA initiative, and this is the man, he can, I guess, tell you a lot more about it than I can, but I'll talk a little bit about it. and we launched a beta trial in Sri Lanka recently, and this is a multi-operator beta trial actually around identity. And again,
it's federated identity. In this case, if you develop with one enterprise developed with operator A, that identity would be able to work with operator B. So, sorry.
Entirely, and this is all about reach and increasing the footprint. So you're trying to make, this is something that operators are threatened by. The OTTs encroaching on our space, taking our customers, starting to own that relationship that we've traditionally had for so many years, that billing relationship, that trust relationship. The Facebook connects, the Google authenticators, all of these things are starting to get more and more part of people's mindshare. The Apple iPhones, Android, it's all going in that direction. And Mobile Connect is, my view, the last chance that operators have to retain that mindshare that people have, or retain customers' mindshare, to starting to own a part of that trust relationship. So it does a few cool things above and beyond what an OTT federated authenticator or a social network authenticator can do. For instance, you can completely do away with passwords, and you can use your phone as an authentication device. So you take away your password fatigue. You have higher security from a second device, of an out-of-band device that people carry with you. Of course, the biggest problem is there's many more people using Facebook. Of course not, because as Johanna said, there's many more people who have mobile phones in the world. The only issue is all the operators are not on this yet. And the only thing that will make this work is getting all the operators on board and using it. It's, yes, the convenience, password fatigue, all great, but at the end of the day, a service provider is only going to put that button on their website when they've got enough customers who are using it. So in Sri Lanka, with the two operators who are already part of the beta trial and the third who's coming along soon, we have about 80% of the population covered through this. And that is immediately several times more than the Facebook footprint in Sri Lanka. So it is very powerful and a very powerful proposition for operators, but a small window to execute. So these slides will just give you a quick view of, sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, you said 80% of the population is covered.
Yes.
What's that percentage of active users using mobile phone?
So actually the trial is still limited. So we've got about 1,000 Dialog users and 200 Mobitel users currently, so 1,200. So it's very small, but end of November we are planning to open it up to our entire base. So that will be the 80% there. Okay, so the next slide, this is talking about the user experience in Mobile Connect. Just quickly click through that. So not very clear there, but a button just like Facebook Connect that you click on, and this on an e-commerce website, wow.lk. So in this situation, what happens is discovery is carried out, and best case you don't see this screen because the exchange at this point carries out discovery and automatically routes you to the right operator. But if you're on an unknown data network or you haven't got cookies, you disable cookies, and the system can't identify which operator you're coming from, it will prompt the screen, ask you which operator you're from. And if you're Dialog, you enter your mobile phone number there. Again, optimize, through cookies. You'd only do this once. You would get a splash screen saying, please check your phone, and ideally you should get a USSD prompt saying login. And that's pretty much it. So as I said, in terms of user experience, this is actually pretty powerful, and it's better than some of the social network logins. And it's just getting the reach, getting operators, getting customers on this is a challenge. So that's a quick overview of the products that we've had, or the products that I think are interesting for this forum. So going to very quickly whistle through the technology and the WSO2 components we've used. So I think Mifan mentioned some of this. We're using quite a lot of WSO2 components. I'm sure very soon we'll start using them all at some point, the way it's going. So it's a good list. What we're trying to do is to come up with essentially a custom build to combining features for multiple products. And of course, this question I think has been discussed various points in this conference. Why we chose WSO2, and I think a big one is that it's great for playing. And if you've got an in-house software development team, they probably would tell you about. Of course, many operators don't have an in-house software development team. Dialog is an exception, but it's a company that people will hear from a very grassroots level. People will start playing with it, understanding what it's like, and the barriers to building prototypes and things are non-existent. No capex for that, so it is something that we can jump on board very quickly. And of course, the ability to customize it to meet our own needs is important, because the telco market is very different from a more traditional API management environment. It's got its own needs. So the capabilities of the platform to customize it to meet our needs was critical for our adoption. Okay, so the technology stack. Just quickly go through that. So we've got. So I'm going to focus on the WSO2 stack that we've built and we've worked with and we've extended. So we've got Ideamart, that is the enterprise and the VAS services that we use for internal service development. We've got one API, so we have integrated to the Canadian hub, the North American GSMA hub, and we've built proof of concept integrations to the GSMA exchange that was discussed earlier. So those are service providers. We've integrated through API Gateway, and we built a number of custom handlers to support this. We've talked about blacklisting, whitelisting, MSISDNs, spend limits, spam controls, ACR is the anonymous customer reference. Now this is very important for an operator, again, around protecting end user privacy. So it's sharing a token rather than an actual MSISDN with a service provider. Because when you've got 1,000 service providers signing up every year, and not the 10 that you're used to. So it's a different model you need to adapt. A lot of the safeguards and the enforcement you need to build into the platform rather than into those contractual negotiations that you make. So these are extensions that we made to the gateway. And the bottom level is the adapters. So this is a combination, we've used a combination of the WSO2 ESP and the application server to write adapters, SMPP, diameter adapters, and web service adapters to various network elements. And what we've done is this platform exposes GSMA 1 API compliant APIs, and where it doesn't, it exposes APIs that conform to one API fingerprint. So we are very much more about build first, use, iterate, rather than going through the standards route. But the established standard APIs we do use on this platform. The request validator module there, in green, that carries out some validation on the API calls going to the system. And I'm going to skip over those components and talk about these ones in a little bit more detail. So for API monetization, we've got multiple billing modules that we've written. So things like per API transaction, per applying a fair use policy, subscription charging, tier charging. So we built a good framework for very quickly building more of these charging modules in. So whether we are exposing a tiered rate card for SMS or a subscription-based charging model for NFC, we build it here. and this is built on top of BAM. So it's running Hive scripts on BAM, converting it into MySQL, and then applying the charging logic to build these invoices. And finally, we've got the portals that we expose to end users for the service providers. Sorry, not end users, but the service providers and developers who come to use our platform. So, got a little bit more detail on Mobile Connect because I think this is a very important initiative for us, and this is an area where the WSO2 identity server has really helped us go to market. So very important fact that I should have mentioned at the start when I talked about the Sri Lanka beta. So we managed to put that beta together in less than a month. And in terms of operator service deployments, this is unprecedented. Yes, it's a beta with 1,200 users, but still putting a service out to end customers within 6 weeks is pretty amazing. And the WSO2 identity servers, one of the key enablers, at least on the technology side, that let us put that together. The slide on the right talks a little bit about the various authenticators that Mobile Connect standard provides. Now, I showed you screenshots of the Click OK. So the Click OK tests whether you've got a device with you, and it's a level of assurance of 2. And then there's the USSD enter pin, which is a level of assurance 3. Higher security. So it's looking whether you have the device with you and checks whether you know a pin. So that's what we offer in terms of USSD. We've got things like SIM applets in the roadmap. Again, a higher level of security where you can evolve towards mobile signature. So what's next? So we've taken the understanding, the experience of building these services the last 18 months of Dialog, and we are extending this platform to the group, to the Axiata group. And what that means is the biggest one, the reach. So from Dialog's 9 million customers, you're going to a footprint of over 240 million customers in the Axiata group. So I really want to get up there, in those 58 outreach events, start telling developers, look guys, it's not the 9 million Dialog guys and not the 100,000 outlets, but now it's the 250 million customers in the region. So that's what we want to get to. And hopefully Johannes will be saying the word.
Yes.
So that's the objective. And it's really, again, I stress the point, that need for speed. It's being able to do some things much, much faster than we're doing now. It's being able to function like an OTT player and partner more effectively with an OTT player. So we're using the same technology stack to put together an Axiata Group hub that would enable one point of integration and reach all of those end users, leveraging the power of the platform that I talked about, exposing GSMA 1 API standards, not the 9, 10, 12 APIs that we have in Dialog immediately, but start with 3 and build the roadmap as we go forward. So the future, well, immediate launch, immediate target is November go commercially live in Sri Lanka with the Mobile Connect beta. Again, as I said, it's Mobile Connect hinges on operator take-up. But I'm confident in Sri Lanka, the 3 operators we have on board have now bought into it. So if nothing else, we will have an identity service, a federated logging service in Sri Lanka that will work very well for Sri Lankan service providers. My hope is that will be global, but at least by the end of this year there will be a service like this in Sri Lanka that is giving you bigger reach than Facebook in Sri Lanka. And of course, this authentication layer is the first thing that opens access to the underlying APIs. So extending this same platform across to the group, to other operators, another big one. So that's a quick snapshot of our future plans. And at the same time, we're talking, we're very open, we're happy to have conversations with operators, developers, service providers, sharing this technology, getting some feedback, quite open to that. So that's all for me. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Off to lunch, I think.